Live. All right, we are live. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. This is Rob here at Smirking Gun Reviews. And if you didn't make it to the watch party, we just finished watching on Amazon Prime The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen from 2003, the movie that broke Sean Connery and caused him to retire. But is the movie really as bad as all that? Joining me is my cohort here, the co-host of the watch party, my good friend, the real Geno Reynolds, and we are here to review this movie. I've never reviewed this movie. I haven't seen it in a good long while. It's one of those movies that is a good Sunday movie, like a rainy day movie when you're just kind of sitting around, you want something different, you put this movie on, and it's been so long that every time I watch it, I forget it's really not that bad. And so, despite its faults, but before we get into all of that, first, I'm going to have Geno give his thoughts on the movie, and then I will give mine, and then we'll discuss as we go. I see Desiree is already in the chat. So, Geno, take it away. What did you think of The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen? How many times have you seen it?
I used to own it. You get to that point where you have to start selling DVDs, but I used to own it. I would watch it every now and then. I saw it in the theaters when it was out, and I really enjoyed it then. And I still enjoy it now. I mean, the movie has its issues, and I'm sure we'll talk about them, but I enjoy the idea. I enjoy a lot of the characters, not all of them. But I enjoy a lot of the characters. I think the villain and the villain setup and reveal could have been better. But seeing these people together, it is the Avengers before the Avengers in a way. I mean, they even kind of do I know the Avengers don't do hands in, but they do the circle where they're a team now, and this movie even does stuff like that. So for me, this movie was still a lot of fun. Some of the effects, I mean, they're not the greatest, but some of the effects still kind of hold up. I like most characters. Skinner is awesome. My favorite has always been and is still Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. The mirror scenes with him are great. It kind of reminds you in a way of like the Gollum scenes from Lord of the Rings in a way. I would have liked a few more of them. Some issues I have with the movie, a lot of exposition. I mean, you've got so many characters to set up, so many histories with these characters. I mean, they're all legendary figures in books and stuff, but we got to still set them up, and they all have to break an exposition. The villain and the villain reveal is probably it was weak for me back then. I like the fact that the villain is Moriarty. It's like, hey, but it's another name we know, right? There's really no setup for it, though, other than it's a name you would know. I mean, I'm sure there may be some hints here and there. Maybe I don't catch them. I don't know. But whenever he's just like, oh, would you rather, me call you Moriarty? And it's like, I remember in the theater hearing that, and I groaned, and I still groan when I hear it today. That being said, all in all, this is still a really fun movie. Almost, someone said it in chat, it's almost ahead of its time. I would love to have seen like this movie be new now, and see what they could do with it. But yeah, I still really enjoy the movie. I know when, I know I joked Alan Moore got a chill when he knew someone was watching this movie tonight. I know he hates it, but he hates everything. So I've never read the original source material, so I don't know how much it plays together, but I enjoy the movie, and I don't care if Alan Moore doesn't like it.
All right, yeah. I feel a lot of the some of the same things that you do here. I also like as many comic books as I have, as many books that as I've read over the years. This is one that somehow missed me, or I missed. I remember seeing it at a library once, and I almost checked it out. And this was after the movie came out, and for some reason, I just never got around to it. I forgot it was Alan Moore until tonight. I'm sure I'd seen it over and over the times that I've seen this movie. But yeah, I didn't really know anything about this before it came out. I didn't even know, like, I know one of my, Devra, that's always in the chats and I'm a Twitch and everything. She didn't even know this was a comic book either. But yeah, this movie was a lot of fun. Every time I watch it, I get that remembrance of, oh yeah, I do like this movie. Every time I think about watching it, I get those old feelings like, yeah, but wasn't this a mess? Wasn't this terrible? This is the movie that broke Sean Connery. It's like I wait long enough to have those doubts every single time that I watch the movie. But I'm sure that, like, one of the things that I feel like when I talk about the Sean Connery thing, I feel like that there had to be a multitude of things that were leading up to Sean Connery making that decision, and that this was just the straw that broke the camel's back. Because this movie was ahead of its time. Some of the best, superhero or comic book stuff that was coming out was based on stuff that wasn't really Marvel or DC. You got, like, stuff like The Crow, and like really soon after this, you got 300, you got Sin City, stuff like that. That's really good. Now, I had a problem with some of the editing during, like, the action sequences. They were jumping around so fast between each character that it was hard to tell what was happening half the time. It was just so fast, just trying to get to all the characters. And 110% agree on the exposition. There was so many scenes of it, even during, like, action scenes, it seemed like they were still giving exposition. And what it made me think was, kind of like you're saying, that you'd like to see it done today, because I have some ideas about that. I did mostly like the cast. I did like the fact for a little while that it was mostly people that are kind of unheard of. The faces that I recognize, of course, Sean Connery, but, like, Jason Fleming, I recognize from, like, Guy Ritchie movies. I know Stuart Townsend had been, his heyday was right here, I think. I think he played Lestat in that Aaliyah movie, the one that right before she passed away. I think it was the Anne Rice movie, The Queen of the Damned. I think he played Lestat in that. But I've never really seen him in anything. Shane West as Tom Sawyer. I remember him from, like, TV shows, but not really much else. Peter Wilson again too. Like, where'd she go? I believe the guy who played Skinner is he's like the crazy. I hate saying it like this, but he always plays the crazy Irishman in movies. Like, he reminds me of, like, there's, like, two guys, like the guy in Braveheart, the crazy, like, he reminds me of that guy. I couldn't tell because, without being able to actually see his face, but he sounds exactly like that guy. Skinner's like a standout. I was actually really surprised at how much I didn't like Alan Quartermaine. At first when you meet him and you have this really great scene, he seems really charming, and then he just kind of becomes an asshole through, like, a great chunk of this movie. And Tom Sawyer is, I wanted to like him, but he's so ineffectual. But this movie is like the effects. I absolutely agree. Some of them don't hold up, but the ones that do are fantastic. The scenes in the mirror with, Hyde and Jekyll, they're really fantastic, and you have to remind yourself that this is 2003, and these are walking scenes. These aren't just sitting still scenes, or like when everything is shaking and the mirror and everything. They did such a great job on that, on the invisibility effects for the time. It was the big CGI effects that seemed to be the most dated. When they, the big ship, whenever you would see that stuff, those are the things that all felt really fakey, that felt like you were watching a cutscene, except for then when you get the big monster at the end. I mean, he was straight out of a cutscene from PS2, you know, like there's so many things. Like he was like a Resident Evil monster from like maybe Resi 3, maybe Resi 4, I don't know, but like most of the effects really held up, and they did do a lot of good practical effects, and the sets were gorgeous. The locations were interesting. The costumes were spot on. You know, it was, I always say, you know, I've been watching a lot of these movies lately, of the ones that just don't get made, the old time adventure movies that just have that feel, like The Rocketeer, movies set in that kind of setting, the turn of the century type of stuff, that like The Mummy and things like that, that just I really, really enjoy more and more. Like when we were watching Sleepy Hollow, you know, like the colonial times era adventure movie, it really made me wish that there were more movies like this. And I have some ideas about where they could do, you know, what they could do with this, and kind of the future of, I think, the successful things like this. Like this could have been a success today. I think if it really, when I said earlier that I was happy that it didn't have big stars, I'm kind of now, like, by the end of the movie, I was wishing that they would at least have had some bigger stars in it, because some of the characters were kind of weak, and at least you could have had some more recognizable faces. But that's my initial thoughts. Like I you know, it made me want more at the end of it. But yeah, the villain reveal too. I remember somebody saying in the chat that it was like, why did we have a scene where, you know, he reveals to a guy that he's the bad guy, shoots the guy to hell, then that guy crawls out of the ship to say he's the guy who did it, and then literally like 10 seconds later he's like pops up out of the ship, hi, it is me. And it's like, yeah, why did we need that? Why did, you know, like, and then same thing with Moriarty. I said, you know, if you listen closely, there's like when he's the Phantom and in the big scene with Dorian Gray, they're all surrounding him, and one of the guys even says, James, get out of here. And it's like, he reveals his name. Like I wanted to see a scene where he goes, dude, real names, we can't do this on a heist, man. Like, we're on the job, you don't use real names. Like if this was like Reservoir Dogs, that guy would have taken a couple in the back of the head for, you know, revealing his name. But when they did do exposition, I mean, they really tried. They really tried to go big. And like when I said that he starts monologuing, they have the record that he made. I thought that was really weird and interesting. But then they filmed the whole scene that nobody sees this. This is just for our benefit, because they didn't want us, like, people sitting there around a table just listening to a record. I think that's why they did it. I think they filmed that scene in black and white and scratchy so that we wouldn't have to sit there just listening. We could have a visual representation of what Moriarty was trying to say. And I feel like I've reviewed it, but I'm going way far off. So we might as well start talking about some of the stuff that we liked and things like that. But I did want to bring up an idea, like I said, why this could work today. And what's been working to me is turning these things, like with all the exposition, with all the story, with all the characters, that some of them worked, some of them didn't. I think they all would work better as a series. I feel like more and more we're seeing this with like shows like The Boys, you know, that even if it was just 8 episodes, you know, you get like 8 about hour-long episodes, you'd have plenty of time to build character, to build motivations, to understand the characters in the world and everything, and tell the story a little bit better than it did, and, you know, lead us along and tease us with, you know, spies and villains and things like that. Because I just feel like we didn't get enough time with anybody. Everything felt really fast. And when you're in the theater, you know, and a movie's dragging, you know, that's a bad thing but I just felt like in this, there was nothing to drag. This movie clipped along, but I didn't know anybody other than the basics. Like, if you're not into literature, then I get you don't know who Alan Quartermaine is from anyone, like if you're a younger kid or something. But if you did it on a TV show, they could at least explain backstories and things like that so people would understand. You might even gain a bigger audience, and the comic books might even get a resurgence as well. What do you think of that kind of idea for movies like this that failed at first, and if they want to give it another shot, do it on a series?
Oh, that's definitely a good idea, and I was thinking the same thing. I mean, you bring up if you don't know who these people are, again, it's the Moriarty thing. If you don't know Sherlock Holmes, you're gonna be like, who the hell is that? I mean, I knew most of the characters back then, though, even though I had never read like some of the stories, like I didn't read like Dorian Gray, but I knew who Dorian Gray was. So, I mean, if you know who they are, it helps. And again, but if you don't, you're just like, okay, at least they give you a little exposition on these characters. We don't really get exposition on Moriarty. So if you don't know who Sherlock Holmes' greatest villain is, well, then that reveal means nothing to you. You brought up the Sean Connery thing about him. I just wanted to bring this up. I guess he didn't think the movie was bad. It was I guess the making of was a nightmare for him and made him quit, I guess, is what led to that. I mean, I'm sure the poor critical reception didn't help, but I mean, he had made Avengers at this, before that, and people hated that. I remember kind of liking that movie too. I haven't seen it in years, and I'm sure I'd think differently, but I guess it was the making of this movie that really drove him nuts. I don't remember what all it was, but I remember him saying he was not real happy with the production. Yeah, a lot of the characters could have used more time, and that's where you were saying a series would come into play. I mean, a series for anything with this many characters is a good idea versus a movie, unless you're going to get 20 some movies like Marvel, which this never would. I mean, they kind of tried this not too long ago, technically, even though it wasn't League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, it was the Dark Universe, where we had the Mummy and we had Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and they were going to do more things. So I think approaching it movie-wise is not a good idea, but a series, most definitely. I would love to see an HBO pick up something like this and try to make a series out of it. I'm sure Alan Moore would love that. I mean, after HBO picked up Watchmen, and I know I heard his thoughts on that, even though I'm sure he probably didn't even watch it. But yeah, a series would be a good idea. That way you could flesh out these characters. You could even give, a good chunk of an episode just setting up certain characters. Yeah, because some of the characters just didn't work. Yeah, you were talking about Alan Quartermaine. I love the old Alan Quartermaine movies, and I think I watched one of them just a few years ago again, and I still love them. It was like, Indiana Jones light, kind of is how those movies are. So whenever I heard about this movie years ago, I was excited about it. And yeah, Alan Quartermaine, though you like him because he's Sean Connery, but yeah, his character is kind of a jerk in this, and you think he's going to have a lesson learned moment, and he kind of does. Whenever we get the Mina vampiring out, right? And he's like, "Oh, you are useful." It's like, "Gee, thanks." She has to be a vampire to be useful. That didn't look real good on his character, and he doesn't really learn his lesson. The fact that he puts his trust in the future to probably one of the worst characters in the movie, Tom Sawyer, which I hate that because I like the book Tom Sawyer, and I kind of like the idea of him becoming this adventurer because it kind of makes sense with the character. But I mean, the character's just not good at anything until the very end when it's like, oh, you're ready to take that shot. When was he ready? When did he learn anything? Until the very last second of the movie. But the rest of the characters, I mean, yeah, Dorian Gray's kind of a douche, but he's supposed to be, and you're supposed to hate him, so it works. Moriarty's kind of weak, but again, I love Skinner. I love Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde's still my favorite part. I like what they do with Mina Harker. I like the idea of yeah, she did become a vampire. So that's kind of a cool twist. Nemo's cool. I love the fact that, he's like, I wasn't really offended that you called me a pirate because I kind of am, but and then he embraces technology. I love that they actually have the technology to fight the bad guys because he's embraced the future as well, and just the idea of the advanced technology of the bad guys is cool. It's very Hellboyish in a way, which I like that because that's what this movie reminds me a lot of is the Hellboy world. I mean, Hellboy is definitely better, not the new movie, but the Perlman ones. But yeah, overall, character wise, there's still a lot of good characters, a lot of good ideas, and I can't hate on this movie. I really can't. I mean, again, there's things not to like and there's things to criticize. But even today, I turned it on and I'm like, yeah, I remember having a darn good time watching this, and we had a darn good time watching it tonight. So anyway,
Yeah, I feel like that, and I know that people don't like me to talk like this, as far as this making this into a series, but and I don't want to get off topic as far as not talking about the movie, but I feel like when I'm talking about this idea of it doing more long form and being able to have more opportunities, I mean, to tell the story properly and give better context. With the way COVID has affected movies and going to the movies, and even after this hopefully is over someday, I mean, it's gonna still affect movies hugely. Some people have probably just said no to movie theaters, period, forever. We're going to be going on like 9 months, right, of not going to the movies for the most part. You and me have been to the movies a few times, and I would still go to the movies. But if the worst happens, and it's possible, I mean, I don't like to sound like a pessimist or a cynic. I try to be more like a realist or prepare for the worst. And it's that if theaters go down, right, then the future really is series. We've been seeing it more and more, people taking chances on things. Amazon and Netflix and Hulu and HBO Max now in the mix, and everybody have competing for the attention of audiences and making less movies and more really high concept television shows that I feel like people should be prepared for this to actually be the future. The way we consume media now is probably going to stay with us. Just, for some people it's going to be because of safety, and for some of us it's just going to be what we become used to. And the thought of going to the movies is probably just, if the theaters are even open, they're probably going to be owned by Disney. At some point, they're just going to, and that's where you're going to go to see Star Wars, and you're going to go to see the cartoons, and you're going to go see Marvel, and you're going to stay home to watch all the good series that they'll put out, and the smaller independent movies and everything else that'll get released on video on demand and all that. And that's how we're going to get it. And it's a damn shame, but I mean, it's more than a damn shame. It's a fucking shame that could be the future of entertainment. But I'm trying to think positively of it. And if somebody were out there that would watch this video and say, like, make League of Extraordinary Gentlemen again, you could, like, it's a series of books. So you could make like 1 or 2 seasons for just one story, and last for like maybe 4 or 5 seasons, 6 seasons, depending on how many books and how successful they are. Because like like what you're saying, like there's things to criticize about this movie, but I can't hate on it either, because I just enjoyed it so much that I was able to forgive so much, even the dated effects, even some of the characters that I didn't really like, and knowing that the villain could have been stronger, and things like that. And the fact that, yeah, like Connery had a terrible time making this movie. I guess on the first day he said, on the first day I knew this guy was insane. And, and that he was tired of working with idiots. And, that's 2003. You know, I feel like also 2003, this was the time when superhero movies were starting with X-Men and Spider-Man and X2 and X3. Like this time period was when comic book movies were making that little surge before Marvel really made that jump. And I kind of almost feel like Sean Connery at the age that he was at, and now he's even older, you know, I kind of feel like maybe part of it was just the movie making styles and the way things were being made were kind of past him, kind of moved past him, where it was just like, I don't really want to do this anymore. It's just too difficult. You know, green screen here and there. I used to just be on set, you know, or real sets instead of all these big spectacles that are becoming more and more and more prevalent today. I feel like that had to play at least some role into it, you know, just the changing of the times and things. Because even though I think Bill in the chat said, you know, that this, you've never even heard of this director ever again after this movie, things were changing as far as these kind of movies were made. And a lot of these actors maybe just couldn't, you know, didn't want to like make movies this way. And it was just too hard. And some of these guys were, you know, the big ideas, because not to say that Sean Connery hadn't been in some pretty crazy movies over his career. He did some wild movies in the 70s, especially, and stuff like The Highlander and Excalibur and God, what was that one where he's just walking around with his shirt off and everything? I can't remember what the title of that one is. It just,
Yeah, I can't either.
I
know what you're
remember seeing
talking
him with
about, but I can't remember the name of it.
yeah, I just remember seeing him like in his really hairy chest. Things like, you know, like movies like in the time like Logan's Run and things like that. There was some pretty wild stuff going on in those days. But if they were to redo it, would you change like how famous the cast is, or would you want to take a risk again on like kind of lesser known people? Because these days the big name stars are in shows now. It doesn't have the stigma anymore as it used to be in a series. No way. But now I think even the big A-list Hollywood actors are more and more prevalent, going, yeah, might as well do these limited series, you know, like and make a ton of money off of them, because it's like every other day you're seeing some A-list actor in a new series.
Yeah, I remember when shows like 24 came around and Kiefer Sutherland's doing TV. And that was like a big shock to me. It's like, wow, you got Kiefer Sutherland do a TV series. That's pretty cool. And really, I think with something like this, if you're going to do a TV series, you're going to have to mix it up a little bit when it comes to the cast. You're going to have to get some big names attached to get people to want to pay attention to this franchise again, because people are going to look back at this movie that they probably don't have too fond memories of, even though we all know it's a fun movie. But then also you could use this to catapult a few stars. I mean, you know, Marvel kind of set the precedent where you get a lot of big name stars, but then you get some people that people may not have heard of before or didn't know much about. You know, you get your Tom Hollands or something like that and really build his career from that. So you could do something like that with this as well, where, you know, maybe you get someone well known as Alan Quartermaine and a few of the other characters, but then your Tom Sawyer's kind of a lesser known actor, and you could build on him and build a series around him, because somebody mentioned in the chat about the comics saying he becomes like an adventuring detective in the comics. So, I mean, you could build a series around that guy, or around that character. So yeah, you're going to have to give some big names attached, but the whole cast doesn't need to be big names, I don't think. You can take a few chances on something like this. I mean, you don't want to put too many big names in there, because then you're not going to get 20 movies to set them up for the big climax movie, like say your Marvel movies. You've got some episodes, and you gotta, you know, you don't want everyone having to have screen time or demanding screen time, because who knows how the actor really is behind the scenes. They may seem nice, but they could be a dick behind the scenes and to be demanding more time on screen. So you want to find a nice balance there. You know, look at The Boys for an example. I mean, there's some recognizable names in there, but of course, like, you know, Carl Urban's going to be your big star, right? And then you've got some other recognizable names in there here and there. And they're building stars out of that. You're going to see some of those people doing other shows when The Boys ends and when that unfortunate time comes. So I think they would be smart to bring in a few big stars and build some new ones. There's a lot of untapped talent out there. I'm sure there always is. There's always going to be somebody that's good, and we just don't know it yet. So I would definitely like to see him kind of mix up their casting. You still got to get a big name to push it. Again, Alan Quartermaine would probably be the character you'd want someone big to play, but I don't know who you'd get nowadays. I hadn't really thought about it, but you would need someone like a Connery that is already kind of a legend and like an older legend, I think, to play that part. And then you could build around him. And it'd be fun. I'd love to see like Tim Roth play the Invisible Man or someone like that. Just someone who has a very recognizable voice to be the Invisible Man. And I think someone like him would be perfect if you could get the rights to the Invisible Man anyway, because I love how this movie danced around that. It's like, oh no, he's an Invisible Man. So yeah, a mixture to just get to the point. A mixture of a cast, I think, would be the smartest thing for a series to do, and a series is definitely a great idea for something like this.
Yeah, and they mentioned the there can only be one of me. Something about otherwise they mess up the franchise or I lose the franchise line. I also want to thank the chat. Desiree and Bill were all over that movie title. Zardoz is the movie that we were thinking of with Sean Connery and his big old hairy chest. I also want to thank Scott Savage. Scott, dude, thanks for coming to the chat. Thanks for coming to the watch party, man. I don't know if I've ever seen you in one, but more the merrier. You had a lot of good things to say in the chat. Thanks for that. And yeah, the irony of drive-in theaters doing well throughout the pandemic. Yeah, I'm glad, but it's like it's just not the way that I would love to see drive-ins make a comeback. It's not because of that. Drive-ins should be making a comeback because they're freaking fun to go to. They've always been a blast, and it's nice to see some things, some positivity out of the COVID stuff. People appreciating some of the things that have been kind of forgotten. As far as how we entertain ourselves when people decide to go out and do things that we used to do. And drive-ins is definitely something that should come back. Really, really should come back more. And yeah, like when we talk about this, I feel like the characters are one of the things that probably held this movie back from being bigger than it was, because who's Alan Quartermaine? Who's Mina Harker? Who's Dorian Gray? I mean, yeah, I never read the book either. I did see the painting, and it's freaky as all hell. If you haven't seen the painting, oh man, like up close and personal of the Dorian Gray painting it's horrifying, actually. It's really like that painting that they showed in the movie did not do the real thing justice. In fact, his transformation kind of looked like more like the actual painting of that. But like, yeah, you got Skinner. Like, people know the Invisible Man. People know Tom Sawyer. But the thing is, like, Tom Sawyer was like the weakest character in the movie. And you've got all these really strong characters that nobody knows. I mean, even Captain Nemo, right? Even Captain Nemo is not really a name that everybody knows. I mean, not everybody remembers 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and they definitely don't know him as the actual character should have been. And the way that Disney did it, they made him, the well-manicured British man instead of this badass Indian warrior guy that, like, that one scene where he's at the end when he's slicing up the big giant monster, all I could think of was he slices, he dices, he julienne's fries. Like, that guy was all over the place. He was a level badass. I mean, he was a huge ship captain, a pirate. He has these nice cars. He knows how to fight, like, martial arts and swords and everything. Like, this guy he could star in his own freaking movie by himself. We have all these huge big characters, and just that nobody knows who any of them are except for a couple. Like I know the name Alan Quartermaine, but I never, like you said, you saw the old movies, but I only knew of them. I never saw any of them, and I think there probably was even, I think there's some television shows that were Alan Quartermaine from like maybe the 90s. I remember at least maybe one. But like I remember, what was it, King Solomon's Mines with the guy from the Thornbirds and Shogun. I can't remember that actor's name. Who played Quartermaine in those movies. I never really saw him. I just remember he was like the Great White Hunter, which nowadays, like, you might have to change Alan Quartermaine up a little bit, because the Great White Hunter I don't think is going to play real well anymore. Like 2003, you could get away with it. In fact, some of the writing in this you could not get away with really today, unless you were playing it. You know what I mean? Like, you had to make him almost a buffoon to be able to talk like this. And Sean Connery is not the kind of guy who would be going in for that. All the sexist comments that he would make, and just general dismissal of everyone around him. That's just like, prove your worth. Oh, prove your worth. And then he gets, like, he gets to the girl, and he's just, oh, you're just a girl. Like, man, if they tried to pull that crap today, this movie would have been its movie would have fallen flat before it even got, to the theaters. Somebody would have leaked it out, and they would have just, somebody would have leaked the script and been like, this thing is full of ways that you can't talk anymore, which is a shame, because I think you should be able to write your characters any way you want. But you do have to, like, maybe change things a little bit. And I don't really think that who's going to get that big of a twist over changing Alan Quartermaine a little bit to maybe not make him such a sleazeball. Although I do rather like what Bill said, that the character in the books was not like the leader, and he was actually just a real mess and and drugged out and stuff. And yeah, you definitely not going to get Sean Connery to be able to play it that way. But in a new version, I think that would be more like the way people would want to see the character. For some reason, we really like to see our characters on the low end of the spectrum, like down in the dumps, where they have to rise up, like, Tony Stark at the bottom of a bottle, and then coming out and becoming a hero, not just being the legend and living up to that. I really thought, though, like, the choice of the cast or the characters in this were really inspired. And the way that they reference things throughout this thing, like, if you had to, like, almost blink and you'd miss a reference in this movie, with Phineas Fogg being mentioned, and you got Ishmael in there. And I even said, like, the Nautilus looked like a Final Fantasy sword, but it also looked like Moby Dick. Even with the eye, like the one side of it looked like a whale eye. Like, you could say that this whole thing, and, like, I don't know who Ahab would have been, but it was just a really fun movie. And I think that if they give it a chance somewhere else someday, they've got plenty to go through. And yeah, I mean, Alan Moore be damned, right? I mean, he's not going to be happy no matter what. Just cash your checks, man. Just cash your checks. And, be the grumpy old man, and, like, be Clint Eastwood in Gran Torino, and just, get off my land, just cash your checks and be the grumpy old man that we want you need to be. And, I wish he would just make more books, to be honest with you, because the guy's mind is incredible. It's just, I think that's with a lot of really great creators, is they're just not always the greatest people. They don't really know how to interact with people, and they got their problems with how people deal with their stuff. But if you don't like the way people deal with your stuff, don't sell it. Do it your way,
Yeah, I think he kind of learned his lesson with Watchmen. You think he would have learned his lesson with Watchmen, because DC's kind of holding that franchise hostage. So you can kind of understand a little bit of his anger, being that when it goes out of print, he's supposed to get the rights back, but it's never been out of print. So, and then now didn't they like add him to the DC universe? So like the characters from that. I know they did some stuff like adding them in with Batman and Superman and everything. When it comes to Alan Quartermaine, I think if you did make him a mess of a character at the first, it could really work, and he could be a jerk, and he could be out of his time. But you could also give him a redemption story and a him being able to change with the times kind of story, where this movie kind of teased it a little bit, but still, he was still on Quartermaine until he quote unquote died. I mean, they were teasing sequel if this makes a lot of money. So you could do something with that character, but yeah, getting Connery to do that, I don't know. I don't know if he would have done that in something like this. And you mentioned him doing weird movies and everything. He's worked blue screen before. I mean, Indiana Jones, half that stuff is blue screen. So, I mean, it's not like he wouldn't embrace technology. I mean, granted, he was working with Spielberg at the time. You've got Stephen Norrington, who's directed 4 movies. And the reason I think this movie even got released is because he was successful directing Blade. So, I mean, superhero movies were kind of back on the rise since Blade. So I think the reason this movie got made and probably got made as fast as it got made was because it's like, well, we got to strike while the iron's hot kind of thing. While we got some really good ones, we got some not so good ones around this time. So, I could see this being a rushed set. I could see this being, we have to get it done. We have to beat this movie out. We have to beat that movie out. So I could see that being a frustrating thing for someone like Sean Connery, but just be like, why don't you just let us create something good? Or he could have just been a jerk on set. I don't know. I really just, I wasn't there, but I could see it being a mess of a set because at this time they were trying to get superhero stuff out because, man, everyone liked Blade. Hey, let's get the guy that directed Blade. Hey, let's force this movie out. Let's buy this one. This one's cheap. We can make this one. Oh, we're going to piss off that old guy. Oh, we don't care. And then make the movie. So I could see it being a rush and a mess of a set. But yes, I want to see it get another chance. I really do, because the ideas are cool. The ideas of bringing these characters together are cool. That's why I was, and I didn't hate the new Mummy movie as much as a lot of people did. I enjoyed it. Yeah, it had issues. It had lots of issues, but I had fun with it. And I was looking forward to seeing Russell Crowe playing more of Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde / Nick Fury. I was looking forward to that because I like Russell Crowe, obviously. But I was sad to see that they weren't doing those. They're not going to do those because I like the idea of bringing all those characters together, or just different characters from different universes together. I just like the idea and I want to see it. And again, that's why I think I'd like to see them try to do something with this again, because the idea is cool.
Well, I kind of feel like with the Dark Universe, I feel like there was a lot of mistakes there. And that's probably a topic for another time, because my opinion, they shouldn't have started with the Mummy. But I think it was Tom Cruise was the big star, even though you got Johnny Depp and Russell Crowe sitting there ready to go as well. I think either of those movies would have been just as fine to set up the universe. But it's hard to even, set up this thing. It's high concept. And these are old timey, characters that they were trying to jump into the modern world when they feel old world. And I almost feel like, you want to set up that universe. Yeah, fine. But why does it have to be modern times? Why couldn't they have just set it back then? Why did it have to be, I feel like that was a huge mistake, but this definitely deserves a second chance. It really, really does. And with all there's so many great ideas and so many different ways you can take it, and so many characters from literature that you can pull from. And hell, I mean, they could really go nuts with it, break all the rules and use, bring characters in that you probably shouldn't have, like invent time travel. I don't care. Get Robin Hood, pull all these people out of, things. Who gives a shit? Make a reason. Just say that the time came and we needed to pull these characters from time, so we had to build a time machine. I don't know. I'm getting way too big of a my ideas are getting way too big. But I don't know. Did you have any like specific scenes or anything that you really wanted to talk about before we wrap this up? Because I just kept thinking at the end, and I know I typed it in the chat, that I was waiting for Tom Sawyer to miss and the guy to be like, ha, 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 and that tiger that he let go would just jump out of nowhere and kill him. I thought that would have been a more amazing actual scene. Like, I knew I saved that tiger for a reason,
Yeah, when that scene happened, it would have been funny to see Alan Quartermaine go, well, I guess you're not ready yet, but the time will come, and yeah, that would have been cool if the tiger would have just tore that guy apart. Be like, the guy turn around, smile, and just be like, and then boom. Oh, and by the way, yes, Desiree, Dracula Untold was supposed to be part of it, of the Dark Universe. But I guess they tacked on that after credit scene after they had made the movie, because they're like, we got an idea. But then they were saying they weren't gonna make that the first of it, because they were just like, well, we're gonna get somebody else to play Dracula besides Luke Evans. So yeah, they planned on it being part of it, but then they kind of scrapped that and said Tom Cruise's movie's the first movie. But because the after credit scene of Dracula Untold, they show it in the modern times, and there's like Dracula, I think in like London or whatever, walking around modern London, and it's like, we need to talk to you. We have the Avengers initiative. I mean, the Dark Universe initiative. But it was basically a Nick Fury scene. I don't remember if the character was supposed to be anybody. I've only seen Dracula Untold once, but anyway, there wasn't a lot of particular scenes in this. I just like the movie as a whole. I like all the ideas. I mean, if I had to point out anything, the effects of Skinner are really cool, especially at the time. They were fantastic. The Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde stuff, a lot of people hated that design. I like it, though. I did find it funny, and I mentioned it in the chat. It's like, oh, you tore all your clothes, but your hat fit you perfectly. Was he just carrying around the big hat until he turned into a monster? I don't know, but I like what they did with a lot of the characters. So there really wasn't any particular scenes. I know a lot of people ripped into that movie because they were like, Venice doesn't have any streets. How are you driving? How are you driving around? But particular scenes, no. Just the movie as a whole, with flaws, even with its flaws, it's just a movie that I still, again, really enjoy to this day, and I want to see something done with it. I never thought it was going to get a sequel after seeing it. But even though they teased it with the witch doctor or whatever over the grave, but I want to see them do something with this, even if it's like an animated series on Netflix or something like they're doing with Castlevania and stuff like that. I would even like something like that. It doesn't have to be live action. Just I would like to see something done with these characters.
Yeah, and with what Desiree says, and I should have thought about this, another literary reference, H.G. Wells and the Time Machine. Boom, you got the time machine right there. Boom, then they could pull anybody they wanted out of it. It could be like, Bill and Ted. Just start pulling all these guys from history, I don't know. But yeah, there's no real particular scenes or anything that I guess I want to talk about. I didn't know we'd be talking about it for this long. There's so much to mine from this, that to talk about something that's 17 years old, and somehow there's this much to talk about, because it's surprising when you look back at movies like this that failed, and just you shake your head sometimes and wonder, what the hell were we thinking back then? Like what constitutes failure and what doesn't. I did not see this movie at the theater. I don't know why. I just remember having it on DVD one day, and I owned it. It would be that movie that I watched here and there every once in a while just go, oh, you know what? Today's the day for League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. You get to luck out and stop sitting on the shelf for, and then put it back for another 5 years or whatever. But I really hope that somebody somewhere down the line gives this another look, see, another chance. Because what a great time we had watching this. And I want to thank everybody that was there again, everybody that's here in the chat, everybody that's watching this. For those of you in the archives, I'm glad that you enjoy this long discussion that encompassed more than just the movie. It's usually how it goes on my channel. We go down rabbit holes. I want to thank everybody: Desiree, Bill, Scott, Devra, Raina, Daniel for being in the chat. Yes, Daniel, I noticed you there. Talking about the Springfield Theater closing. That's a damn shame, man. But we will be back one of these days to do another one of these. I myself will be doing more watch parties for Halloween. Starting on Monday, we're going to be doing Resident Evil watch party for that. Yeah, we almost did that one for this one. I guess we didn't bring it up to each other. And so Monday, we're going to be doing a watch party at 7 o'clock Central Standard Time, but not a live review. I'm going to do the review separate, and it'll still be out the same night. I'm trying to think of other good Halloween movies, but it has to be stuff that's on streaming. So that everybody gets to enjoy the movie as well. I actually thought about, I'm going to see if The Frighteners is still on a streaming service, because I did a review for that during the 420 reviews, but I would love to watch that with an audience and re-review it later, because that is one of my all-time favorite, like, Halloween-y, scary ghost movies. But we'll see. The sky's the limit as long as, it's on streaming. I want to thank again Geno for being here. It's always a blast talking to you. I love doing these with you, and I love talking to you guys in the chat. That was The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, everybody. A flawed but fun movie that really deserves a second chance. If you have a chance to check it out, it is on Amazon Prime. See, Amazon, I can plug something that you've got on there, and I will give a good review occasionally. Even though this isn't really your property and it's just something that you stream for, the rights that you have right now. So anyway, Geno, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you at?
You can find me at the Reel Geno on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, anywhere reviews are sold, I guess.
And of course, I'm here on my channel, Smirking Gun Reviews. You can also find me on Twitch at Smirking Gun Plays, all one word. On Twitter at reviews_gun. And with that, we will be back with more stuff. We got Lovecraft Country tomorrow, Resident Evil on Monday. We got Old Shield new reviews on Wednesday. If you go to D's Reviews on Tuesday, we got Fans of the Boys finale to talk about. If you want to talk about the finale of The Boys, come join us there at 8 o'clock Central Standard Time. I still haven't watched the finale. I'm actually waiting the day of to watch it. I have been avoiding spoilers like a mofo. And I came home and my whole family was watching it, and I had to run downstairs with my ears covered going, la, 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 la.
I will say this, this is not a spoiler. It's good. It's good. I will just say that. It's good.
So with that, this is Rob saying have a great night and enjoy the rest of your night. We'll see you with more stuff later. Bye.